problem so far.
Jeremy McGrath to the inside. So number one is showing us how comfortable he is on that number one bike. Which rider's going to make it to the main event? Jeremy McGrath. Number one is out in front, starting to get into some lappers already in our qualifying round. And here's the checkered flag. Jeremy McGrath, his 44th career Supercross win. He said it was coming.
This is great. This is like winning my first race all over again, and I think I'm back now.
That's how fast things can change. Look at Jeremy, he's riding so good now.
This is the white flag, the last lap for Jeremy McGrath.
Well, you know, I felt really smooth out there in my heat race that time. I mean, better than I have probably all year. I'm really excited about that race. I went around those guys pretty easy, so maybe I could do that in Maine.
Jeremy McGrath's going to show him a wheel or two here on the inside. Jeremy McGrath, his second lead of the Supercross season. The checkies for Jeremy, who's won every race that's been staged here Supercross-wise in this Metrodome.
All right, here's my first technique video. You're gonna have to bear with me. Sometimes it's gonna be a little boring. It's not an extreme riding take. Obviously, we're gonna put some good shots to make it really interesting. But you have to remember, it's all about learning the basics. If you apply what you hear in this video to your laps, to your practice, I guarantee you're gonna learn something. So let's go have some fun.
Something missing, left behind. Searching circles every time I try. I've been here before, yeah. Seen you before. I can't escape walking down these halls. Had to find a place where there are no walls. And no lines begging me to cross. Always straight ahead, better move along. Like clockwork, I commit the crime. I pretend to be everything they like. Been here before, yeah. I've seen you before. I can't escape walking down these halls. Hard to find a place where there are no walls and no lines begging me to cross. Only straight ahead, better move along. And I trade everything for this. And I trade everything for this. Why do I read the writing on the wall? Why do I read the writing on the wall? Why do I read the writing on the wall? Why do I read the writing on the wall?
Hi, I'm Jeremy McGrath. I've been racing motocross for the past 18 years. And what I'm going to do today is try and help you with some of the tricks, some of the tips, and techniques that helped me win races over the years. So, let's get started. All right, well, what we're going to try and learn today is what you need before you ride, such as safety gear, goggles, helmet, boots, knee braces, etc. We're also going to learn the setup of your bike, which I think is very important because you want to have the confidence when you go out there and ride. We're going to go over ride position on the bike. We're going to go over weight distribution, where you should transfer your weight back and forth into cornering and such. Also, we're going to go over how the clutch works and how you should use the clutch properly, and being in the right gear, of course, shifting. We're gonna really work on corners today, some of the techniques and tricks for taking the corner properly, and also we're gonna hit on some of the jumping. I'm gonna show you how to jump, what not to do and what to do. And that's pretty much it. We're gonna stick to the basics and start there. All right, well, let's go over some of the safety gear. I know myself, there's a few things that are absolutely a must. And one is for sure the helmet. Obviously, you never want to get on your motorcycle without having a proper helmet. So that's something that just should never happen. Also, you need to wear boots. I think boots are very, very important to the safety of your ankles, to your feet, to your legs, and it's really going to protect you there. I wear knee braces underneath my pants, which really protects my knees. And as long as you have something over your skin to protect your elbows, your knees, whether it be knee braces or knee cups, that's good. It also would help to have some good goggles. You don't want to get a rock in your eye when you're out riding in the dirt here. And just some gloves. And I think you're ready to go. We're going to go over a few things that I think you need to bring to the track with you. I like to bring a toolbox. You know, you need to have a tire pressure gauge, you need to have a spoke wrench, you need to have a few things just in case. I also like to bring some chain lube. I also bring some gas, bring a spare filter in case it's a really dusty day. And you never know what can happen. So let's go over to the bike here and figure out what you need to check before you get on the bike and actually ride. I like to go over the spokes, make sure all the spokes are tight. I think one thing that's really important is you check the tire pressure. I like to run 12 pounds in the front and rear. Everybody's a little bit different on that one. But it's really, really important that you go over the bike, make sure the chain's tight, make sure it's well lubed, and it's very important you take a look at the bike. You do a once over, you kind of make sure nothing's falling off. Take a set of T-handles or whatever you have in your toolbox and kind of go over some of the nuts and bolts. And you don't want stuff falling off when you're out there on the track. It could be dangerous. All right, now that we went over some of the general maintenance, let's get you up on the bike, get you set up, and I'm gonna show you how I set my bike up to be comfortable for me. So let's get started on that. All right, so we're gonna go over a few things that are gonna help you with setting up your bike for you. First thing, when you're gonna adjust your handlebars, you wanna start with your handlebars loose. You want to set them up in the, I would say somewhere in the middle position. If you get them too low, your elbows drop, it gives you a little bad form on the track. Same goes for if they're too far forward. So it's important I think you just start in the middle, kind of somewhere around there and figure out what you like. For your levers, you definitely don't want to be the guy with your levers all down or one down and one up. You want to start somewhere in the middle. I like to personally have my clutch lever just a little bit higher than my brake. So I think it's half your battle is your setup, because you got to really feel good about what you're out there on the track riding. All right, now that we have your handlebars adjusted and your levers in the correct positions, let's go over the brake pedal and the shifter. What I like to do is have my brake pedal adjusted pretty much even with the foot peg. I like to run a little bit of play in there also, because if the brake is too touchy, you're gonna stall or lock up the rear wheel, which is a very common mistake for people learning to ride. They put a lot of weight on the brake pedal and they stall the bike. So I would suggest you run a little bit of play. Now let's check out the shifter. Pretty much every new bike, the shifter position is in the right spot. If you have a used bike or this has been changed, or you find yourself going into neutral on occasion, the shifter could be too high. I like to run mine pretty much parallel to the foot peg, which is in stock position. If it's too low, it could cause you to miss a shift or be really awkward when you're out there on the track. If it's too high, the same. So I think the shift position should be pretty flat. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try and take you through the clutch, get you shifting at the right times and being in the right gear. First things first, obviously when you're taking off, you don't want anything to be too abrupt. You wanna just put the bike in gear and you want to apply a little throttle. You want to have a smooth release to take off. I think with the clutch, you really want to use 1 or 2 fingers. You really don't want to use 4 fingers and pull the clutch into your bar like that, because there's so much dead space there. And say you had all 4 fingers on the clutch, you really can't hold on to the bar. I mean, what if the handlebars start going sideways and you need to really hold on? As you can see, there's a little worn out spot right here from my hand grabbing. So I suggest you use 1 or 2 fingers, that way you can keep control of the bike. I would say that it's very important to try and do the same thing with the front brake. You always need to stay in control of the handlebars. And at the same time, if you use 1 finger here, you can still apply throttle like this, or let off, or whatever. If you have 2 or 3 fingers on the front brake, you're really not going to have good control of the bars, or for instance, the throttle on this side is what's really important. So I suggest 1 finger here, 2 fingers on the clutch. I'm over here. Hey, are you listening to me? Okay. 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch, 1 or 2 fingers on the brake, the other 2 fingers on each hand. Keep them on the bars to keep control. Smooth clutch release, smooth throttle. Are you listening? You get it? You're not getting it, huh? Go back and watch it again. Pay attention. Let's go over a few of the different body positions that you're going to need when you're riding the track. First things first, you want to stand up. You want to have a good neutral riding position. You don't want to be too far back like this. You don't want to be too far forward like this. I think the correct way is neutral, chin over the bars, elbows squared up, even weight on your foot pegs. That's a good neutral riding position. All right, one thing I need to tell you about. I think it's very important that you make sure you never look right in front of your fender, because if you stare at something right here, you're not going to see what's coming ahead of you, and you're going to have a tendency to crash. I think it's very important that you look out about 10 feet or 15 feet in front of your front fender and follow where your eyes go. Wherever you look, your bike's going to go. And that's a really key suggestion, because I think a lot of guys get caught up looking right in front of their fender, and they either hit the rut wrong or hit a rock or anything like that, and crash a lot. Once you start being able to focus ahead and look ahead, it's really going to help you. All right, now I'm going to demonstrate what happens when you don't keep your eyes forward. You got to look ahead. Trust me. Here we go. All right, trust me. You got to look ahead, or you're going to end up on the ground. All right. Now we're going to get into some cornering. Something a little more difficult, a little more fun. Definitely something you need to listen to. So pay attention. I'm going to try and give you my advice on sit-down corners and stand-up high-speed sweeping corners, and also give you a chance to look at how the correct way to ride through ruts is.
Be the best part of
All right, what we're going to talk about now is going from your standing neutral ride position to when you need to sit down entering a corner. What you want to do is you want to stay in your standing position just about until you're going to make your turn and get on the acceleration again. It sounds kind of complicated, but you really want to make it in one motion. This is going to make you really smooth and really fluid. So when you're coming in the corner, you're in your standing position. Right when you're going to make your corner, you go for the sit down, you go for your leg out, turn, and then you hit the throttle again. It's really important to have your leg up, because if you get your leg hanging behind the bike, it's going to want to take you off like that. If you have to dab, okay, you have to dab. But if you're in the right position, you should be able to hit the berm with your leg up, and that's the correct way to do it. A common mistake that a lot of beginners to medium speed riders do, they don't really use their knees enough. Your knees are a really important aspect of riding for the fact of you need to squeeze the bike. For instance, if you're making a left-hand corner and you have your left leg out, you need to be pulling hard with your right leg to hold you on the bike. If you don't apply any pressure to the tank and there's some bumps, the bike really gets out of shape, and then it's really, really hard to hold on. If you get in the corner and for some reason it's really bumpy and your knees start to go away from the correct position of squeezing the tank, I think it's really important to pull on the bars a little bit and use your abs, because if your knees can't grab, your abs will hold you there. All right, listen, cornering, neutral ride position, sit down, put your leg out, hit the gas. One fluid motion. And don't forget, if the corner is bumpy, use your knees and use your abs to hold you on the bike. And oh yeah, don't be this guy. All right, now I'm gonna give you a few tips to not be a goon at the local track. You always have to have etiquette, and you know, I know a lot of guys probably say there's no etiquette in motocross, it's every man for himself, but that's not true. You have to have respect for your other riders, your other competitors. And one of the things I think is very important, because where we ride, there's a lot of public riding areas, public racetracks. You can go and ride, and there's all types of level of riders. So I think it's important when you get on the track to know that there's faster riders out there. Oftentimes you're going to see a slower rider on the exit of the track start from the left side and cut all the way across the track and go off the track. That's one of the things you don't want to do. I mean, that could really hurt someone. That can take out a faster rider, and he can hit you and crash, and everyone, that's bad for everybody. So you don't want to do that. You just want to be aware of what's going on around you, and if you are going to be pulling off the track, you want to stay to the side before you get there. Another common mistake is going over jumps and really roosting the backside and getting another rider dirty or muddy, or I mean, that's just so uncool. You don't want to do that. And the worst kind of guy is a guy who sees someone behind him that's faster or someone they admire and looks back and then moves out of the way and takes you out. I don't know how many times I've been taken out by that guy, and I just don't want you to be that guy. On straightaways that are really rough and bumpy, you'll be in your neutral ride position, but you'll be really squeezing the seat or the tank or whatever you need here, because that's going to hold you on the bike. A lot of guys don't really do that, and I think it's really, really important. It keeps the stability of the bike and keeps you from getting out of control. Also, with sweeping corners, you're going to be standing up, you're going to be weighted on your right leg if you're making a right, or your left if you're making a left sweeper. But at the same time, you can be squeezing with your outside leg, just pushing against the bike. And what that does is it just holds you stable against the bike. You don't want to be flopping all around. And some of these tracks, some racetracks or some practice tracks have really big bumps, and your knees are a very important part of that.
All right, you guys remember what you're supposed to do with sweepers? Weight the inside peg, hold on with the outside knee. You should have it. If you don't got it, go practice. Go, now, see ya.
Okay, now we're going to talk about ruts. It's very important to have a good approach to the rut. Make sure your line is correct on the way into the corner, because sometimes if you come in too far inside with too much speed, you're going to blow the corner. And you definitely don't want that to happen. Make sure you keep your front and rear wheel in the rut. You don't want to turn out too early, because you'll get a rear wheel slide, or it could cause you to high side. When both wheels get in the rut, that's when you can put your eyes forward, start to think about the end of the rut. Make sure you keep your foot up, because the bike will be sitting lower. You don't want to get dragged off the bike or have your leg dragged back. Once you hit the apex of the corner is when you should be really smooth on the throttle. And your exit speed is everything. So once you're comfortable in the rut and you get to the apex, it should be all on the throttle from here on out. All right, another important part of riding is foot position. A lot of riders, pro riders too, find themselves getting caught riding in their arches only. And I've found over the years, for me, one of the important things is, say you're making a right-hand corner and there's some big bumps and maybe a deep rut. If you have your right foot hanging down from your arch, there's a chance that that thing's going to get caught on a bump, or it's going to rip your foot off the foot peg. So I've found that if you just slide your foot back and you ride on the balls of your feet for situations like that, it's really, really good. It lessens the chances of injury, and you're not going to, rip your foot off and get squirrely. Another thing is on a rough straightaway, if you are in your arches and you start to get out of shape, you really don't have any movement in your ankles. And another thing that I've found over the years that works well for me is if I just slide back and ride on the balls of my feet, I get a lot more movement in my ankles. I get about 2 or 3 more inches. And this allows me to where if I get out of shape, I can kind of move around and save it. And I find a lot of my friends and a lot of guys that I know come off the track and their boots have a foot peg worn in the bottom of them. And I really think that you need to be moving your feet around, because it helps. You don't want to be stuck in one position. And I think that's important. You need to keep your feet moving.
All right, feet position. Don't forget to move your feet. You can try all kinds of positions. You don't want to have your feet stuck in one place. Oh, that's stupid anyway.
All right, now I'm going to try and explain some jumping to you, some body positioning, and where I think, at least when you start out jumping, this is how you should be. I think it's very important to have your weight and your body centered over the bike. You don't want to take off a jump way back like this, because you have a tendency to pull the front wheel up and then get in a really awkward position, and you're liable to crash. Another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to lean too far forward off a jump, because if the jump is steep, then the bike's going to hit it like that. You have a chance of going over the bars. So I think it's very important to stay centered when you're going to hit jumps. I think gear selection is very important. A lot of times you'll see someone riding in too low of a gear off the face of a jump. And what that does is that has a tendency to put the nose really high. It's going to get you in what we call a loop out. And you don't want to be Larry Loop out, that's for sure. Okay, one of the other common mistakes that people make when they're jumping are when they are going to jump in the air, when they're going to come up short, when they're going to endo. It's really key to stay in control and not panic when you're in the air, because what happens oftentimes is, I mean, yeah, you're going to make a mistake, but sometimes, or most all the time, you can save it, especially if you're thinking clear. I mean, if you're panicking and you think, oh no, I have to jump off, you know, or I'm going to crash, you know, more than likely you're not going to save it. So it's pretty important to stay calm and really go through your head, okay, I'm in a bad position, what am I going to do to adjust to make this right, or make it the best I can make it without crashing?
All right, here's a quick recap on jumping. You don't want to be too far forward. You definitely don't want to be too far back. You want to try and stay as close as you can to the neutral ride position. Always remember to stay in the right gear. If you're not in the right gear and you make a mistake, don't panic. Jumping is the best part of our sport, so make sure you take it slow and have fun.
Sometimes it would help to have your buddy out there with a video camera if you have one available. It really helps to see exactly what you're doing, because sometimes you might think you're doing it right, but you're really not. So it would be cool to be able to get a video camera, maybe film with your friend, and go review it and check it out. Say, oh, okay, now I understand what I'm doing wrong. Sometimes you can't feel it until you see it. One of the things I like to do is make a little turn track. Sometimes builds up some little ruts, and you can get in there and you can practice your form, especially entering and exiting ruts. And you can do laps in there, and the track doesn't have to be very big, just so you can get in there and get the feel of the bike, get the feel of the corners, and get used to that. Obviously every corner is different, but this will help you find your form. Not only does a turn track help you with your cornering and your form, it really helps with using your brake, finding out how to use the clutch correctly, throttle reaction, and being really smooth with the controls. Using your brake pedal, using your front brake together, everything like that coming out of the corners. Putting up cones is actually pretty good. You get in there, you get to practice your line on your entrance to a flat corner. You get to practice using your throttle, using your clutch coming out of the corners, and would be a really good exercise to practice flat corners. Here's an example of how to do it right and picking out the lines by kind of coming in a little wide, braking in for your apex, turning and accelerating out of the corner. Now here's another example of what line not to take. You don't want to come straight in. If you're making a 180-degree corner, your line doesn't need to be straight in, turn, and go, because you'll be too far outside on the exit of the corner. You need to make a nice sweeping corner out of it, even though it's a tight, small corner. Very important. You guys might think this is kind of crazy, but it helps to put up cones and do these little disciplines, because in order to make a perfect lap on a track, you have to practice the fundamentals. And it's really important to get out there and spend some time off the track and doing little exercises that are going to help you figure out how to use the clutch, the throttle, the brake, picking lines. And it's all about technique. If you spend enough time doing some of this stuff, it'll make your track time so much more valuable.
Does it work? Can you even hear me? Standing with your spotlight on me. Not enough to feed the hungry. I'm tired and I felt it for a while now. This sea of lonely. The taste of ink is getting old. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Each day gets more and more like the last day. Still I can see it coming.
for corners. You don't want to do that.
As long as you have something over your skin. What are we going to talk about? All right, so now we're going to go over a few things that you need when you're going to go to the. You can repeat this.
So here I am, it's in my hands, and I'll savor every moment of this. So here I am, alive at last, and I'll savor every moment of this. Savor every moment of this.
Here we go. Recap on jumping. Take one.
All right, here we go. Just a quick recap on jumping. You don't want to be too far forward. You definitely don't want to be too far back. And you don't want the phone to ring. You don't want to be too far forward. Hey, what's up? You're supposed to weight the inside of the peg, hold on with the outside of the knee. Wrong. Again.
That's right.
No, the outside knee, not the outside of the knee. Yeah, if you're holding on with the outside of the knee, you're doing it wrong.